The Carthaginians pour into Spain, but the Iberian people will not go down without a goddamn fight. Hey, how's it going? My name is Jackie Fish, and welcome back to another Divide Et Impera online battle taken from the head-to-head between me and Republic of Play. In this head-to-head, we fight off against one another. I'm playing the Seleucids, Darren is playing as Carthage, and I highly recommend you guys check these out every single Wednesday at 3 PM GMT over on my YouTube channel, because we have some crazy ass battles, and this is one of those battles taken from that live stream where I jump in and play as the AI. I'm playing as the Arvasi against Darren on the campaign map, and yeah, my forces, as you can see, are hiding up. Darren is trying to quickly take care of the Iberian Peninsula so that he can focus obviously on Rome and maybe even Egypt and other places, and basically try and stop me from, you know, exerting my influence too far. So he's looking for a decisive victory against the Arvasi, and obviously I am looking for a decisive defense and defeat him, because if I win this battle right here, or at least wound him enough, I push Darren back and I hold him at, you know, I make him waste another 5, 6, 7 turns replenishing this army, reconquering this territory, which makes these head-to-heads so goddamn exciting. So for my force, I don't exactly have an amazing force. I think I have about 900 actual professional soldiers, and then I have a pretty large contingent of town watch or garrison forces. And I mean, for the most part, the garrison forces for Spain aren't that bad. Like, they have some okay units. The greatest thing about these garrison units is a lot of them all have 2 to 3 javelins, which are really the strongest part of any army in the early game, until units get much better armor and kind of you get the higher tier morale units and stuff like that. Javelins are your friends in Divide Et Impera, and you guys will see the strength of them in this battle, because they get pretty goddamn crazy. So Darren obviously has a full army. This was really the first time I think he used a proper Carthaginian army, so he's going to be testing out his might as well. But as you can see, because I'm defending, and for some reason I think I sallied out so I get all these defenses, I've got a pretty cool setup right here in the forest. So Darren does have, I think, 2 or 3 Balearic slingers, which will be coming into range pretty soon. But yeah, I've got this really nice position in the forest, which is going to protect me quite heavily. This is dense forest, so we can hide units. We can obviously use the terrain to our advantage. I've got a lot lighter infantry, whereas Darren has heavier. And my slingers are going to be a lot more protected. I've only got Iberian slingers, whereas, as we just said, Darren does have the strength in them Balearic slingers, which are just so goddamn good. So yeah, at least my Iberian slingers can kind of shoot from a distance, hide, keep that fire going without really receiving too much, which I'm really looking forward to. And then I've got these barricades. These barricades are going to be absolutely humongous for protecting my flanks, because one of the real weaknesses of my army, yes, I have quite a few numbers, but for the most part, they're not very good, obviously. You know, they're garrison forces. Garrisons can be useful, but they're never going to win you decisive battles. It's really going to be up to your proper professional soldiers. So having these spikes, having these barricades is amazing. I've got a very nice position here as well in the forest. It's very hilly. So Darren does, I think, have 4 units of cavalry in this army, which is obviously, again, going to be pretty scary for me, because a rear charge into any of my lighter infantry is just going to send them running. You know, you can see these guys don't really have many pieces of armor on. They have like a helmet or like a headband, and that's about it. So yeah, any rear charges is going to be great, but because of these barricades, I'm kind of channeling Darren through these gaps behind me. Obviously, I'm trying to avoid redlining as best as I can, and I try to give as much room as possible, but I've obviously taken this, you know, defensive ground, and we always say that defensive ground is always much more important than redlining. You know, if there's a big hill with a dense forest, that's kind of where you defend. I guess I could have held over here, but I would have run into the same issue right there with the red line as well. We kind of just wish the battle maps were just a tiny bit bigger, like 25% larger, rather than maybe even just like 15% larger than what we have right now. So I'm throwing up my peasant mob right now to set ablaze these brimstone pits, which are always quite funny. Try and scare him off, try and maybe make him slow up a little bit. There's a battle timer is obviously ticking as well. We have 40-minute battle timers, which do come into play pretty often. But taking a look at Darren's forces, you can see these Balearios slingers are just insane. Some of the best range units in the entire game. I think these are the mercenary variants, which are a little bit more expensive, but I believe Darren does get access to just ones from recruiting them when he gets to I think it's in tier 3 city building. We obviously also have the amazing looking Carthaginian Sacred Band. I think these are the early Sacred Band units, looking absolutely just awesome. Look at them go, man. Such a nice looking unit. definitely one of my favorite units in the entire game. We also have some smaller contingents of just these Punic levies. Actually, these aren't even the Punic levies. These are kind of, I think these are lighter than the Punic levies, maybe, I'm not too sure. But he has a handful of phalanxes, which again is going to work out pretty decently for me, I think. I think fighting phalanxes is going to be quite good because, obviously, you know, this terrain is so bad for them. And something you guys might not know, in Divide Et Impera, this does actually come into account. Phalanxes fight a lot less efficient uphill, and on all this rough terrain, kind of like they did historically. So it's really like kind of beneficial for me for that. And obviously, you know, with Darren having this pretty dense block of phalanx in the center, I can definitely utilize that. He does then have a large contingent of mercenaries over on his right flank. You know, a lot of these militia and other units of mercenaries, which again are going to be pretty brutal. So on my front line, I'm going to have to basically just sacrifice the mob. I feel like I'm the Mongols right now. These guys are out here to basically just absorb any missile fire, any javelin fire as well. That's exactly what I want them to do. But the scariest thing in Darren's army is going to be the units hiding in this forest right there. I believe it's 4 units of cavalry plus his depleted general. His general is actually only on 19 men, which is amazing for me. But yeah, it's 4 units of cavalry here. I think there's one on this flank and one on the other. And there you go, my slingers are opening up on Darren's forces right now, just harassing him, slowing him up, making him a little bit more tired. And as you can see on the unit cards as well, if you want to pay attention to that, we're playing with the experimental battle pack that adds in these really awesome tooltips, letting you know more about the units. So as you can see, as the units get tired, you'll see this strength go down, and also you can see their morale as well dwindling from all the different percentages, which is just really nice. I love the new tooltips in the mod. I think it just adds a lot more coherence to the mod itself. So the battle is just kicking off right now, and my screen of these plebs are really, really working. The townsfolk are taking this entire javelin volley right now from this medium spear infantry, which is absolutely amazing. Like, these guys are going to be trash. They're not going to do anything in this battle whatsoever. So the fact that Darren is using some of his javelins on them is amazing, because my front line is just a garrison force. Which means that basically if they take the volleys, if they take 2 or 3 volleys of javelins, that's going to severely weaken their strength. Luckily, this unit right here isn't a javelin unit. This unit is actually probably the best unit I have right now. It's actually really, really deadly. It's something that I didn't use in my Iberian campaign. I wish I used more of these guys. They're light, but they do a lot of damage. So right now, this town mob has just absorbed a bunch of ammunition, and all of my javelins, like, I outnumbered Darren by a little bit. I think I outnumbered him by about, you know, 700 men, 800 men, maybe more. I'm not too sure. We can see at the end. That basically just equates to more javelins being thrown at Darren as he closes the distance. He attacked me. I have the high ground. And, you know, that's going to be really beneficial. But the thing is, whether or not Darren's better quality can rip through me, like, these guys over on my left-hand side are going to do very decently against me. You know, these mercenaries can get stuck in. They have low morale because they're mercenaries, but besides that, they can really get stuck in. And there you go. Darren's going to then return a volley of javelins back at me. But again, my townsfolk are out front, and this strategy is really helping me out. Darren is going to slowly start working down these barricades to get this flanking. Obviously, you know, these guys making their way in are going to be very deadly. I think this is his best unit he has in his army, besides the Sacred Band. And as you can see, you know, my Iberian townsfolk are doing their job. They're dying, basically. They've absorbed missiles, and we're absorbing his fire. And as we said, this battle doesn't need to be won by me. If I can do enough damage to Darren's army, then that's going to really affect his campaign. And also, which is a really interesting thing in both of our campaigns, is that we're both expanding into territory that doesn't have a huge Hellenic or Punic culture group. Like, I'm going into Arabia. Egypt has a lot of Egyptian culture, which means that the population doesn't get converted as much, meaning it's very, very hard to go ahead and then replenish your armies, because you just don't have the population to do that, and then that slows your campaign up, means you have to start using weaker units. So again, if I can just kill a handful of really good units here, it's going to definitely deplete Darren's advancement into Iberia and for him to keep on going. So as you can see right now, Darren does have his 3 units of Balearic Slingers, a unit I am frantically trying to bring down. However, he is hammering my guys with everything he has, and this dense forest is, like, insane. is basically shielding. It's like I've just put down a Tau shield generator on my unit of Iberian slingers. I'm losing like 1, 2, 3 men a volley, which is not a lot considering his 3 units of some of the best range units in the game, hammering them down. Like, and I'm barely losing hardly any slingers, and I'm basically doing as much damage to him as he is to me. Like, this unit is down to 146 men, whereas mine is down, you know, to a lot less. I think Darren is spreading his fire, just assuming that his slingers would just slaughter me. But, you know, it's really helping me out. I'm focusing down 1 unit, whereas he's spreading it out. But his slingers are so much better than mine that I guess he expected that his slingers just to demolish mine. But it's coming in absolutely huge for me right now, because I'm so close to almost bringing down an entire unit of Balearic slingers. You know, they haven't taken a lot of casualties, but because they're mercenaries, the morale isn't that great. And because we're in the early game and we don't have amazing generals yet, like, this unit is going to break, and that all of a sudden, you know, basically a third of Darren's range force is just completely taken out of the battle right there. And this forest is acting as a huge advantage. So Darren's obviously moving around with his cavalry right now. I'm actually going to pause it to show you guys some cool stuff. So yeah, I've got some traps here that managed to kill a handful of horses right there. And the barricades, you can see, are causing Darren some issues getting around, because that was always my issue, right, was his 4 units of horses outflanking me and demolishing me. You know, my front line, I have enough numbers to keep that busy, but as the front line starts to dissipate, as the front line starts to get taken down, you can see these mob are breaking now. You know, I'm going to have to bring more and more men forward into the battle line. I have a small reserve line of like 4 spearmen, but as you can see, you know, there's like an open gap right here for his cavalry to come in, and 1 rear charge will break like my entire army, so I need to basically do everything I can to stop that. So I do have 1 good unit of cavalry. That's going to be my general unit, and this unit is going to be pretty strong. Obviously, general units tend to be pretty deadly, and you can see them in here with the big old lancers. They're very effective on the charge. They have some decent armor on them, and yeah, they're a pretty scary unit. So we're going to be charging in there, trying to scare off some of his lighter cavalry. I believe he has 2 units of light cavalry and 2 units of medium melee cavalry. So I really wanted to go for this lighter cavalry first, because you can really break them down. The javelins and the slingers will definitely do a lot of damage to them. So I'm basically trying to scare off this unit of cavalry, and I get really lucky there, managing to break this unit of cavalry right there. That's like super lucky for me to be able to bring them down. However, it is giving Darren a great time to come around. But again, being in this forest is so big, because all of a sudden, my men kind of come out of nowhere. You know, in Divide Et Impera, line of sight is really crucial. And you actually have these amazing ambush moments where if a unit is hiding in dense forest, you won't be able to see it until you're like 4 or 5 meters away from it, like now. You know, this unit is only probably just come into vision for Darren, so, you know, he probably came around thinking, oh, I'll just dive in and hit his front line, and then all of a sudden, you know, my infantry kind of comes out of nowhere. They all start throwing javelins at him, and like, we are being a proper guerrilla force right now, holding up in these forests, coming out of nowhere, throwing our javelins at his cavalry. And you know, here's 4 units of cavalry. That meant that he couldn't bring 4 more units of infantry to this fight, and I'm basically nullifying his cavalry by forming a huge box with these barricades, with these other things. But as you can see, Darren's line is breaking through mine. You know, my weaker units are starting to break down. I am charging downhill at him, but yeah, his front line is very scary. But once again, his phalanxes are finding it quite hard to maneuver on this really poor terrain. You know, look at that, he's got a few guys hitting him, but he's not really cutting through my front line like he needs to. He's brought up some more javelins as well. He's really trying to focus down my flank. And for the most part, you know, my front line is doing a very good job. His Balearic slingers are finally starting to break some of my Iberian slingers. And he does have like a clear path right here if he wants to break through. He just needs to get his men stuck in. He has a few reserves as well that can be brought in. And whilst he's keeping me busy with this cavalry right here, it is very scary as well. But again, you know, you can see really the difference as well. Darren's got some of his men hiding in this dense forest as well. Well, not dense, but light forest, I would say. So you can see the units definitely taking a lot less damage in this kind of small shrubbery than elsewhere. Darren is also going to go in for a risky move right here, try and break one of my units of infantry in the back, especially with that javelin fire coming in as well. You can see my Spanish troops are quickly trying to descend upon him, try and catch this unit before it does dive in, but Darren is just going to go for it, all or nothing right now. into the rear, and this is just so deadly in the early game. Like, the units we use just cannot really withstand a rear charge, and all of a sudden you can see that my units are not looking too good. They're already down to steady, and I'm assuming, yeah, right there they're shaken all of a sudden. Their numbers are dropping, the formation is breached. There we go, look at that. Darren's unit is also dropping down because of the casualties sustained, and then I'm quickly flooding this unit of cavalry with all of the spearmen I have in reserve, because by killing this cavalry, I can then focus solely on the front line. And again, I completely bogged down Darren's infantry, cavalry right here with my general unit, and I'm just trying to swarm him with cavalry. Again, it's kind of unfortunate the red line is here, because I'm sure Darren would just like run up this way and then go all the way around. So it kind of sucks that, you know, he can't. I mean, he can steal, and I try and give him as much space as possible. But sometimes it's hard in the heat of a battle to really realize where the red line is, you know, because I'm sure, I mean, obviously I've caught his cavalry right here with mine and my spearmen, but yeah, like, you know, obviously if Darren had maybe a bit more room to maneuver, you know, he would have run his cavalry up and then maybe back out to safety. But he does still have space to do that if he wants to, which is absolutely fine. But yeah, as I said, we always say that, you know, whenever it comes to it, terrain over the red line, if there's like valuable terrain, you know, as long as you give some space like this, it's absolutely fine. As long as you give like enough space to fit 1 or 2 units through, that's what we agree is, yeah, it's fair game. Because at the end of the day, terrain is the most important thing. It kind of makes for the most exciting battles. Yeah, for sure. So my infantry are just diving in right now, and I'm really happy. Like, I played with the Iberians in my last campaign against Darren, so I'm pretty impressed with how well they're holding up. You know, when it's not Iberians versus Iberians, they actually do a pretty decent job. You can see some of Darren's other phalanxes, and I think Darren did decide to dismantle this phalanx and actually just charge in, try and cut through my battle line. And he is having some pretty good success in the center. My center is about to completely break wide open, which is pretty goddamn scary. I've got some slingers breaking. I've got units that are very close to breaking. Look at both these units of my mercenaries are very close to going down. Yeah, you can see they're red now. So Darren is making amazing progress. I'm kind of winning on the flank slowly but surely, but Darren is now just ripped my center completely open, and he is going to be diving through with his phalanxes. Luckily, it kind of is phalanxes that are coming through the center and not lighter infantry that could capitalize on this. Once again, I've managed to catch Darren's cavalry as it tries to flee, but this is, you know, this is holding up a large portion of my force right here. I've committed like 4 units, I think, of spearmen back here, plus my general. And that's a lot, right? Just to hold down 2 units of cavalry, because, you know, that's kind of basically meant that I couldn't reinforce my center. So even though Darren couldn't utilize his cavalry as effectively as he would like, he's still getting pretty close to breaking some Iberian spearmen who have lost 8 men back here. And he's also, you know, opening up this position, which he can just thrust loads of men through. Luckily, though, I am doing a pretty good job against this unit of militia, and I have managed to start bringing some spearmen back over. Obviously, my slingers are very, very vulnerable, but I've kind of won the missile off against Darren, which is just crazy how having the kind of height advantage and also the terrain advantage allowed me to beat Balearic slingers. And as you can see, this is what the early game is all about right here. My units are breaking, Darren's units are breaking. It's just an absolute mess right now. So, you know, basically whatever happens, we just basically have to try and hold as best as we can. I think Darren did come in and pop a pretty nice rally off on his men, which will hopefully hold them. And if he can get this amazing unit of early Sacred Band through, then, you know, this unit's going to be so good. But again, look at the terrain they're traversing. They're going uphill. They're going through rocky terrain. They're going through forests. And that just nullifies the strength. Like, heavy infantry like this can't sprint. They can walk fast and march fast, but that's about it. And that's going to be so useful for me. You know, if I can bulk with this unit down, that's just going to be so big. You know, the rest of the places, my infantry are doing a pretty good job. Now, Darren is using some more of his slingers up here to scare off some more of my men, but, you know, my front line is holding, I guess. And if I can scare off this cavalry, then I can bring back all of this infantry and try and help out in the fight. I know it's quite hard to see what's going on, guys, so hopefully the forests aren't too bad, but I always love playing with these dense forests because, again, it just makes it really, really interesting things. I guess this map would be pretty useful right now. So as you can see, yeah, Darren has pushed deep into my front line, and I'm just trying to deal with that. I'm in the red, Darren's in the yellow, and yeah, I just need to get some of these infantry blocks back into the fight here to slow up his phalanxes. But it's kind of really useful for me that, you know, these are phalanxes pushing up. because they're just not as fast at countering my forces, and being in this amazing terrain advantage I have is really kind of adding to the battle. And that's just why these Divide Et Impera battles are so exciting, is because of the line of sight, because of the morale, because of what's at stake in these engagements. You know, imagine if I get to kill one of Darren's generals in one of these battles and it forces him into a civil war. Like, that's insane. That's so cool. If I kill, you know, this army, it basically allows the Arvasi to build up more men, and there we go, and beautiful rear charge. I believe Darren actually retreated his cavalry as my infantry just continued to screen, and that allowed me to bring in one of my cavalry units to just try and shore up my front line. I feel like if I could try and maybe just break this unit and just open my center completely back up, how important that would be right now. As his cavalry tries to pour through, he really wants to get onto my missiles, but he just can't. Like, this unit is down to half strength now. My infantry can catch it. My general can fall back and deal with it. Like, I've just managed to nullify one of his biggest strengths with this terrain, and also with the awesome barricades that forced him round into this gap back here. And you know, that's kind of where my numbers came into an advantage. You know, Darren didn't really have the range to beat me, so he had to come to me, which is crazy to say as my cavalry come clashing in. It's absolutely mad to say when he has Balearic Slingers, but again, these forests just gave me so much, and I definitely had the numbers as well to sacrifice to his Balearic Slingers. I'd rather have this terrain than not, and it does seem like one of my infantry units have now broken on this side, so Darren did come. Oh no, actually, I decided to start flanking. Check me out. And Darren's line does start to crumble at this point. You know, with that cavalry just being overrun, his front line being rear charged and just going through this awful terrain, it does start to seem like my battle victory is very, very close right now, and that it is. So I do claim victory here, and I definitely set Darren back a ways. I think this was the first time he'd used a proper Carthaginian army, so he was like really testing out the units, and I had obviously played the Arvasi in the last game, so I had a pretty good idea about what my army was capable of, which obviously just came in absolutely clutch in this battle. You know, I kind of generally knew what my units were doing, so that was just really important. I think this terrain just was absolutely huge. It basically nullified his phalanxes, it nullified his Balearic Slingers, and it nullified his cavalry. You know, then what does the Carthaginian army have if it doesn't have them three things? So it was just an absolutely awesome battle with the way that the terrain came in, and you know, the front line. You know, this battle really came down to whether or not Darren could break my front line before I managed to bring my infantry back from the rear of the battlefield. It really, really did. And like, even his cavalry would have struggled, but going uphill, going through these little positions right here, he lost a handful of horses on my booby traps back here. Like, just little stuff like that really added up. The unit of Sacred Band, though, is fighting to the bitter end. We actually see some of it right now. Yeah, the unit of Sacred Band completely enveloped. I don't actually think this is Sacred Band. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it is. I think it is, actually. It's like an early variant of them. But yeah, like he only had one unit of these guys, and he definitely needed a handful. Like, if he would have rocked up to this battle with 4 of these bad boys, he could have just slowly grinded me down from the front, because I have nothing that would have been able to kill these guys from the front at all. But again, yeah, he didn't really know like what the units were capable of, so it makes it very, very interesting doing stuff like this and playing these factions. I love Carthage. They're definitely one of my favourite factions, and hopefully one day I'll get to play them in a head-to-head, because they're absolutely awesome. But yeah, a pretty juicy victory for me on the battlefield. Like, we came out pretty well at the end of that battle. Like, I'm very happy with how that one ended. And yeah, as I said, I managed to get some revenge because we lost with the Arvasi in the last campaign. So yeah, they did very good considering I only had these guys. Yeah, so I had 1,300 more men. Obviously, 600 of that were Town Watch, but the Town Watch came in clutch in that battle. And yeah, you can see Darren only had one unit of the Sacred Band, his Elite General Cavalry, which again was very depleted. So like, this unit was basically non-existent. His cavalry just couldn't get in, and I think that's what really won me the battle. And yeah, his just lack of like heavy shock infantry, because you know, these guys did do a lot of damage. It's just they couldn't get more in, and his phalanxes did do well. So I think if he would have had a couple more units of the Sacred Band, or maybe a couple more units of infantry, and maybe not as many skirmishers or something, he definitely would have just broken through my battle line. But my javelins coming in and everything like that just really wore him down fighting uphill, tired out his men. And it just kind of was like, this is like a good example of why Divide Et Impera and these head-to-heads are so awesome. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this battle. If you did, drop a like and a comment down below. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday at 3 PM GMT to see how the campaign is developing. This battle was, I think, from a first stream, and we are on, I think, stream 4 or 5 next. But don't worry, like, don't feel like you've missed a lot. I can always explain what's gone down. And these head-to-heads tend to be quite slow, so, you know, and they only get more exciting. You know, imagine when me as Seleucids and Darren as Carthage actually come to fight one another. You know, if that happens in stream 10, you want to be able to see what, you want to see them streams, even if you haven't seen anything before, because they just are really, really fun when we really get to our strategic campaign playthroughs. And every battle means so much. So yes, as I said, make sure to drop a like and a comment if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.